see solar cycle sunspot number progression going back to solar cycle 21 and conflicts in the Middle East, okay? So this is solar cycle 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You can measure solar maxims by sunspot numbers. There's a variety of ways we can look at this. We can look at also solar radio flux and solar flare activity, geomagnetic storm activity. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but sunspot numbers are one of the best measures of overall solar cycles and the flip of the magnetic field, and we have that data going back hundreds of years, okay? More so than solar flux measurements and such. Iran hostage crisis back in the maximum solar cycle 21 around the 80s. You'll remember that Iran had hostages of the United States. So this is kind of like USA conflicts in the Middle East, this specific graphic. With Jimmy Carter, then Reagan came in and that resolved. We had Desert Storm here in the early 90s with solar cycle 22 maximum. Then United States invaded Afghanistan and Iraq for WMDs. Solar cycle 23, that maximum period, okay? Solar cycle 24, Libya and Syria, conflict there. If you've been to Europe, you know that that was big because there's Syrians everywhere in Europe. Huge exodus of people out of both of those countries. And now we have here solar cycle 25, Iran and Pakistan, Afghanistan. This is new. I mean, it's not a new conflict, but this open war literally just started in the past couple of days, and Iran has been ongoing, but really reaching a pivotal turning point now. So here we see these conflicts in the Middle East perfectly lining up with solar maximum cycles. And we can look at this data here, the relationship between solar activity and spontaneous social processes. So we see that often there are revolutions or these increased periods of civil unrest and conflict. We kind of characterize them as spontaneous social processes during solar maximums, going back hundreds of years. American Revolution, French Revolution, revolutions across Europe. First Russian Revolution, Second Russian Revolution, Spanish Civil War. You go down the list, right? Arab Spring happened with the last one, solar cycle 24. And there are other ones in here as well. We had the conflict with Napoleon around this time. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff correlated with solar activity because it's charging up the overall energy field that we live within, and just in general provokes more activity and kind of erratic behavior from those that haven't grounded and centered their energy, right? If you're not in resonance with the cosmos, which is a more stable energy field, and you just in general, maybe you haven't done the work yourself, like a lot of these global leaders are, ultra narcissists and ego freaks and more, right? They go ahead and push, and the populace is also resonating with these energies, but in a more kind of cohesive, spontaneous, eruptive sort of, we're going to change things, hopefully, for the better activity. So that is a well-known relationship. Here we can see another one. I was talking about this earlier. Here we see Schumann resonance. This is the foundational mode in the vertical electric field. This is the foundational frequency of Earth's naturally resonant energy fields at 7.8 hertz on average, generated by lightning strikes, the global electric circuit, a whole bunch of stuff. This, all this research in general goes back like more than 100 years too. So it's not new that we're learning more and more, but this is well known in certain circles, and it's just not well publicized, you could say. Well, here we see data out of Hungary. They measure the Schumann resonance going from, May 1993, February 2016. I would love to see the new data that they have. It just needs to get processed, I'm sure. Maybe I'll reach out to the geophysicists there. I've talked to them before. We see that during solar maximum, sunspot numbers go up. We see that the foundational mode frequency increases with about a 1-year delay relative to solar maximum. It takes some time for this energy to enter in to this energy field that the Earth generates that we resonate with our biorhythms and our brain waves directly. So we see that even for solar cycle, this is solar cycle 23, which was stronger than 24. We don't see much of a shift from solar cycle 24, which is weak, right? But we see with 23 that this shift in frequency up about 0.2 hertz was quite strong. And if we go back here, let's check this out again. We see that solar cycle 25 has been closer to 23 in strength than 24. It's kind of a blend of the two, but certainly, you know, if you're getting over 200 for the sunspot count, at least for 1 month, that was August of 24, it's a strong solar cycle. We never broke above 150 sunspots for a monthly count for solar cycle 24. We had, you know, quite a lot of activity in that zone. And in general, the baseline kind of foundation of the maximum period for solar cycle 25 has been higher, certainly, than 24, which is in general kind of under 100. We've been over 100 for sunspots. So that Schumann resonance effect is likely active for right now. This data, you know, being off the screen effectively, if we were to extend it out, if we had that. But that's showing that also this is another contributing factor to these sort of energies. One thing also to note, and well, let's do this first. So here we are. Yeah, here's some of the war stuff. U.S.-Israel timeline of stuff. We can see here going back June 13, 2025, major strikes against nuclear facilities, more U.S. strikes there, and then there was stuff launched on the 23rd, and then after 12 days of fighting, ceasefire takes place. That's Iran and Israel. We see that Pakistan declares an open war with Afghanistan amid escalating attacks. This is set for yesterday, February 27, 2026. This is a big deal. This doesn't look like it's going to be just a small thing, but I think this is going to escalate quite a lot. So that's active right now. We have another report from, when was this released? 27th of February, yesterday. South Sudan at risk of return to full-scale war. The United Nations warns there's renewed fighting, widespread just abuse, and the civil war likely to erupt again in South Sudan. It's certainly possible. People are really looking at that closely. We hope that doesn't happen, but solar maximum, it's very possible. Back in December 2025, Thailand and Cambodia had a border skirmish, and that's not looking like it's probably going to continue. You know, if you have a peace deal backed by the guy who's starting new wars, then it doesn't mean anything. So this was back in December of 2025 when there were missiles launched by both, or maybe not. I don't know whether it's missiles or mortars. I think it was both. Either way, not good at all. And so yeah, these are some of the things that are happening right now, which are not really good. And yeah, the final thing to show you, this is very interesting, is here we have our geodetic map. So there is a system for astrology where they have plotted which astrological sign has domain over what region of the globe. And we see 0 degrees of Aries here for the eastern United States, and you go forward like this. Now, an interesting thing to note is Uranus seems to be connected to warlike activity. Uranus necessarily isn't a planet of war like Mars is, but it's a planet of sudden change, and it can kind of be violent at times. And so a good example of this is that Uranus was located in Gemini, Western tropical astrology, for the American Revolution, for the American Civil War, and for World War II, and it's going to be entering into Gemini this spring, okay? I think it's like either May or June that Uranus, maybe July, that Uranus moves into Gemini, and it'll stay there for 7 years. And we see that, at least for the United States, that lines up with its major conflicts. Again, American Revolution, Civil War, and World War II. Well, if you look here, where Uranus is seems to be connected to where there is a lot of warlike activity, all right? And sorry, this wasn't, this is different. This is 0 degrees of Capricorn. Here is 0 degrees of Aries, if we're looking at the red lines, all right? So if we go to where Uranus is, it's right now at the end of Taurus, about to move into Gemini. This is the Gemini block right there. Well, during this time frame, we've had war in Ukraine. Okay, so we see that right there, Eastern Ukraine specifically. We now have war happening in Iran. We see it in that location as well. South Sudan is right in this zone here, right? And that kind of wrapped up in 2018, which Uranus was in this location going back before 2018. It's moving through. We see that it's going to be moving into this Afghanistan-Pakistan zone. It's effectively almost there right now. So you see how where Uranus is based off of the geodetic position seems to be correlated very strongly with where we are seeing martial activity. So it's not necessarily causing it, it's more just like the clock telling you what time it is. Keep that in mind. So as this moves forward, we can forecast, we'll see how accurate it is, but it's already very accurate. We can forecast that we're probably going to see renewed activity between China and India. We're going to see an escalation between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we're probably going to see more activity with Iran because it's going to be in this zone here for a few years. So this is likely not coming to a close anytime soon. This is probably where the main theater of war will be. Hopefully the conflict in Ukraine wraps up soon, and hopefully we don't get a renewed civil war in South Sudan. And then as we go forward, maybe in 7 years' time, we're really looking at Cambodia, Thailand more. We're seeing that kind of build and build and build. So that is the report. A lot covered today. I know it's a lot of information, but I wanted to go through literally everything and give you the download, because with this information, you can see that, you know, effectively, we're just getting a big increase of energy come in cosmically, you could say. And the Earth is resonating with that. So that's why the seismic activity, for example, is worth noting. The swarms around Japan, Taiwan, the activity around Vanuatu. Expect to see more events like that unfold and build across time. And then you add in all the conflict right now. The big fear, you could say, for a lot of people is that these conflicts are going to start merging together, right? Because there's relationships between Russia and Iran, and you know it could turn into like a World War I scenario. Now, a lot of the astrologers, in their expertise, they're saying that we're going to see this. They've been saying this for months now, years, that we're going to be seeing an increase in conflict around this time frame this spring. And that it's probably not going to lead into something bigger, though it's going to be on the edge of that. So these conflicts probably aren't going to merge together. We hope that's the case, but it's going to get close to that, and it'll be very troubling in that regard. Though I don't recommend being fearful of anything. Do your best to release those low energies, those low frequencies, and to live a self-embodied, self-actualized life. Go where you're treated best. But that is something that is probably going to be a big theme in the public discourse for the months ahead, so it's worth noting. At least get some coins, maybe. Get some coins, some constitutional junk silver, 90%. Worst case scenario, you can start trading coins with people. Make sure you have water, have a garden, grow your own food if you can. Things of this nature, very, very important. So we'll get into the question and answer. And trust and have faith that you will be protected, everything will be well. That's at least what I believe. But also be willing to change and adapt as needed. The universe will take you most of the way there, but it's going to ask for a little bit. Okay, it's going to ask for your cooperation, maybe 10%. So God's holding his finger out. It's up to us to do that final little touch. Okay.